Discovering the heartwarming truth. 90% of buyers regret these car brands after just 1 year. John Thompson had always been a dreamer. Most folks in Maplewood knew that. The 38-year-old mechanic, with grease-stained hands and a smile that could light up the darkest shop, had worked hard for every dollar. He loved nothing more than to fix up the old trucks and cars of his neighbors, his talent evident in every polished screw and repaired engine. But this time, it was about something different, a dream not just for himself, but for his beloved wife, Sarah, and their two energetic kids, Emma and Lucas. After years of saving, he finally had enough money for a brand new car. The debut of shiny metal and sleek curves was more than just transportation. It was a promise that he could provide. And as he unveiled the gleaming vehicle in their driveway, Sarah's eyes sparkled like stars. "Oh, John," she squeaked, her voice thick with gratitude. The children bounced around, eyes wide, beaming with pride for their dad. Laughter danced in the cool evening air, wrapping around them like a warm hug. It felt like they had won the lottery. But clouds loomed over the hopeful horizon. Just months later, the car plunged its way into chaos: engine failures, brake malfunctions, a computer glitch here, a rattle there. Each trip to the repair shop felt like a punch in John's gut. The bright new car, which represented joy and promise, became a dark cloud of disappointment looming over their family. It was an embodiment of failure, a stark reminder that he couldn't even provide reliable transportation for his wife and kids. As he worked to pay for repairs, the whispers spread through Maplewood like wildfire. "Did you hear about John's troubles?" They wove a narrative of disappointment, a narrative that thrummed with misunderstanding. John saw pity in the eyes of friends and neighbors, and it stung like salt in an open wound. With each judgmental glance, the weight of his inadequacy sank deeper into his chest. Yet amidst the gloom, the town rallied together. Neighbors began to share their horror stories about the same car brand. Brand X is a lemon, each tale binding them closer together under the shared banner of frustration. John began to feel the support of the community, and their solidarity stitched together some of his frayed confidence. Inspired, he became determined to take action. He would uncover the truth behind the misleading advertisements that had lured him in with the promise of reliability and safety. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. This quest led him to a town hall meeting that crackled with energy. As he stood before the townsfolk, friends, neighbors, and good folk who had whispered doubt about him, he felt the crushing weight of vulnerability. Suddenly, the words flowed out, a river of raw emotion. "This isn't just my story," he implored, eyes glimmering with newfound determination. "It's our story. We deserve better than this. We need answers." His heart pounded, every soul in the room a mirror reflecting his joy, pain, and uncertainty. The atmosphere shifted, from skepticism to a flicker of hope, igniting the room as the crowd began to murmur supportively. But as John searched the audience for Sarah's reassuring smile, doubt crept in. Would he strengthen their community or turn them against him? Would standing for what was right lead his family to further ostracism? In that charged moment, John felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Would he find the courage to continue this fight for honesty, for his family, and for Maplewood? The energy in the room buzzed like a live wire. John's heart raced as he locked eyes with Sarah, her expression a mixture of pride and concern. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the community's gaze on him. Every whispered judgment he'd felt before dissolved into a bubble of resolve. "It's time we stood together," he said, his voice rising above the murmurs. The crowd leaned in, curiosity etched on their faces. He could see them processing his words, some nodding slowly while others whispered to their neighbors. He pressed on, buoyed by the palpable shift around him. "I know I'm not the only one struggling with this. We can't let ourselves be treated like this anymore. We need to investigate. We need to share our experiences." One woman, her hands wrinkled yet strong, raised her voice. "John, we've all felt it. Just last month, My brakes failed right in the middle of Main Street. Agreed murmurs swept through the room. With each word, with each story shared, John felt the building momentum wash away some of his fears. With a newfound confidence, he offered to take charge of the investigation. I can reach out to other communities, gather testimonies, and if needed, we can unite to confront the dealership. A wave of applause erupted, sparking a sense of belonging that wrapped around John like a warm blanket. This was not just his battle, it was theirs. As the meeting progressed, ideas flowed like water. Could they organize a rally? Could they petition for a class action lawsuit? Each proposal sent waves of excitement through the crowd. John felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in months. Hope. He began scribbling down notes, capturing every idea, fueling the fire within him. But as discussions deepened, so did John's anxiety. What if they discovered that no one was willing to take the next steps? Could they really find a way forward? The optimism in the room felt fragile, like a delicate glass sculpture glowing under a spotlight. Sarah suddenly stood, her voice steady. "John," she said, "you're doing something amazing. But we need to remember that there's strength in numbers. If everyone comes together, it will help to shield us from any repercussions from the dealership." When she mentioned repercussions, a shudder coursed through him. What if they did face backlash? The realization hit him like a cold breeze. Standing up for truth could risk more than just their reputation, it might even threaten their livelihood. Yet the thought of silent suffering felt worse. After everything they defaced, he wouldn't let fear dictate his actions. As the crowd continued brainstorming, John found himself more moved than he had expected. Sharing those stories of pain started weaving invisible threads of connection. He thought of the car as a symbol of such joy and now a source of frustration, and how it had initially brought them all together. Every personal testament added weight to their purpose. True change required sacrifice. With determination coursing through him, he raised his voice. "If we unite, we'll be unstoppable. No more secrets. No more disappointments." The room erupted in cheers, an unyielding force of support igniting John's spirit. Yet, as applause faded and conversations resumed, a gnawing feeling settled in his gut. Could they really create the kind of change they all craved? Days slipped by filled with meetings, phone calls, and gathering stories. A momentum grew that felt almost infectious. But in the depths of his thoughts, doubt continued to trifle with his vision. If they uncovered something sinister, who would pay the price for it? John looked to Sarah, who had become his steadfast anchor amid the storm. "We're doing this together, right?" he asked, searching her eyes for reassurance. She smiled, but there was a flicker of uncertainty. "Always, John. But we need to be ready for whatever comes next." As he watched her smile fade to a somber thought, he felt the chilling brush of apprehension creep in. What if the consequences were more than they all bargained for? The time was nearing for the community to learn the real truths behind Brand X. Some truths could shine bright like the sun, others could cast long shadows over their lives. What would they discover in their shared pursuit? The days rolled on, each one filled with excitement and unease. John felt the pulse of the community, matching his own renewed energy, charged the air as they delved deeper into the gathering storm surrounding Brand X. Each evening brought new stories, fresh testimonies, and growing resolve. But with each shared experience came fresh anxieties. It was Friday when John noticed a shift. The weekly meeting had a different feel. It crackled with potential, but was laced with an undercurrent of fear. He stood at the front, a leader emerging in a time of need. The smell of coffee lingered, mingling with hushed conversations brimming with uncertainty. "Let us start by looking at the reports we've gathered," he said, tapping his pointer against the table, the sound sharp against the murmur of quiet voices. He scanned the crowd, catching eyes filled with hope, but also a flicker of fear. The old woman from before, who talked about her malfunctioning brakes, wasn't alone. People shifted restlessly, their earlier enthusiasm now tempered by the weight of what they might uncover. "I've spoken with 3 other communities, and they've had similar issues," John continued, pulling a stack of papers towards him. "Faulty parts, dangerous malfunctions, even some accidents. We're not isolated." He paused, taking in the room. "But if we want to make a real impact, things could get tricky." Sarah stepped up beside him, her presence like a beacon. "We're here for each other, remember?" She glanced around the room, encouraging nods reinforcing her strength. But there's more than just social media posts or letters to the dealership. We need hard facts, evidence. A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd until a voice piped up from the back. What if they retaliate? What if they bury our complaints? It was a fear-only voice now, but felt shared by many. The room fell silent, tension tangible, a drawn bowstring waiting for release. Then we fight back, John exclaimed, the passion lighting his eyes. If we band together and tell our story, they won't be able to ignore us. But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. What if they did retaliate? The discussion shifted, voices rising and falling like waves. Plans turned to action items, but the fear remained what they discovered would forever change their lives. I promise, he said, his voice steady. We will remain united and support each other, no matter what. After the meeting, as the crowd began to disperse, John lingered behind. He felt Sarah beside him, her hand on his arm, grounding him from the whirlwind of worries. You did well, John, she said softly, her eyes shimmering with an undercurrent of worry. Thanks, he replied, searching her gaze. But are we really ready for this? Together, yes. Divided, not at all. She smiled, though it didn't completely reach her eyes. Just make sure to look after yourself too. Days turned into a blur of research and meetings. As they began to discover more evidence, a trail of complaints that twisted like a dark ribbon, they couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. There were whispers of brand influence that sent shivers down their spines. John had no intention of backing down, but each night brought restless dreams of backlash and reprisals. On a rainy Tuesday evening, just as shadows stretched across the room, the community gathered once more. And then it happened, a voice at the front called out a name that stopped John's heart. What if we reach out to the media? This needs a bigger platform. A rush of fear and excitement surged through him. Could they do that? And what would it mean for everyone involved? John took a breath, the weight of his decision heavy. What would be their next step into the unknown? Would they face the truth head-on, ready to expose it all to the world? He looked to Sarah, eyes questioning. Do we go bigger than this? A flicker of determination ignited in her eyes. Let us do it. Together. As they gathered their courage to make the leap into the powerful forces that governed their struggles, the reality of their impending fight loomed large ahead. What awaited them on the other side of the truth? The night was thick with anticipation, an electric energy crackling in the air as John stood before his community. The weight of their decision loomed large, a storm cloud of unspoken fears hanging over them. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting for a sense of direction, a clear call to arms. Reaching out to the media is a big step, John said, words firm but his heart racing. We'll need to be prepared for any fallout. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about bringing light to a truth that could shake things up in ways we can't even imagine. Sarah stepped forward, her expression resolute. If we have evidence, we can't let fear silence us, she stated, her voice unwavering, holding the gaze of the crowd. People need to hear our stories. They need to know that they aren't alone and that change is possible. More voices rose in agreement, echoing Sarah's sentiment. A mother with tired eyes spoke up. What if we could prevent someone else from getting hurt? If we don't say anything, who will? As the echoes of agreement filled the room, John felt the swell of their unified resolve. He was still scared, but seeing their commitment spark a flicker of hope within him. It was a collective healing they were pursuing, one born out of bravery and shared pain. Then let us start tomorrow, John declared, adrenaline coursing through him. We'll gather all our data, personal accounts, and evidence. We'll draft a press release, and I'll call every media outlet we can think of. The crowd erupted in soft cheers, relief and excitement mingled together, washing over them like gentle waves on a shore. Still, there was a stark reality dividing the exhilaration from the fear that loomed. Could they really pull this off? Was it worth the risk? Later, when the meeting dispersed, John felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. He had led them into something monumental, and the weight of that responsibility was hard to shake off. Outside, the rain pattered softly against the pavement, a gentle rhythm that somehow felt soothing. Hey, Sarah said, catching up to him as he leaned against the side of the building. The rain dripped off the edge of the roof, creating little pools around their feet. Are you okay? John looked at her, his heart heavy yet hopeful. I don't know. It feels like we're standing on the edge of something big. Reckless, maybe. What if this makes things worse? Or better, she replied, her eyes brightening. We've already lost so much. It can't be any worse, can it? Sometimes we have to leap blind. It's how change happens. Her optimism was infectious, and for a moment, John allowed himself to believe in the possibility of victory. He nodded, smiling softly. You're right. We can't let fear hold us captive anymore. They stood there watching the rain, a fragile peace blooming between them, strengthened by a shared determination. John clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the moment settle into something more manageable. But just as hope began to seep through his worries, an unexpected sound rang out. A car abruptly screeched to a halt nearby. John turned, the surprise sending his pulse racing once again. From the shadows emerged a figure he recognized, but it took a second for the weight of who it was to fully hit him. It was someone they had never expected would come forward, someone whose silence had been deafening. What are you doing here? John called out, confusion and fear swarming in tandem. As the truth of their hidden connection flickered between them, anticipation crackled like electricity in the rain-soaked air. Would this unexpected arrival be the ally they so desperately needed, or a new threat to their already fragile plans? The figure stepped closer, revealing a familiar face shrouded in shadows, glistening with raindrops. It was David, someone who had kept to himself, a ghost of sorts in the community. He had always been quiet, preferring the corners of rooms and the chasms of silence. Only now, he held a flicker of something different in his eyes. Was it courage? I need to talk to you, David stammered, pausing as if the words were heavy stones on his tongue. Now, John's voice was a mixture of disbelief and hope. David had always been the last person he expected to engage in their struggle, let alone show up at such a crucial moment. Yes, David said, his voice steadying slightly. Before you take this step, you need to hear what I have to say. The rain drummed louder, and for a moment, the world around them faded away, the weight of their quiet lives exchanged for the gravity of this conversation. John stepped forward, glancing at Sarah, who nodded in encouragement. He gestured toward the nearby gazebo for some cover. As they huddled beneath the structure, John's heart hammered in rhythm with the rain. What is going on, David? David exhaled deeply, the tension bleeding from his shoulders. You remember the stories about the old factory? The one that has been shut down for years? There are truths locked away that even I had buried deep. I lost someone in that fire, and I didn't say anything. I thought my silence would protect me. But it didn't. John's chest tightened. The factory had long been a specter of their community's pain, wounds still fresh even after all this time. What do you mean? You know something? I know who was responsible, David admitted, his voice trembling slightly. And I know what they've hidden. If you go to the press, they might dismiss your stories. But if you have the truth, you could blow the whole thing wide open. Shock coursed through John. This was it. The missing piece they needed. The stories, the evidence, and now a lead. Why are you telling me this now? Because we're not alone in this, David replied, each word deliberate. And I'm tired of being quiet. I don't want anyone else to suffer. We have a chance to change things, to fix what has been broken. Looking into David's eyes, John saw a reflection of his own fears, but also an ember of hope. Could they really be on the verge of unearthing the truth? Around them, the rain began to subside, a delicate mist settling in the aftermath of the storm. The community's past had been filled with darkness, but here, under this gazebo, hope flickered anew. Sarah placed a hand on John's arm, her touch grounding him. If we can do this, we must be prepared, she urged, glancing between John and David. There will be backlash. Are you ready to face it? Yes, David replied, newfound strength in his voice. I won't hide anymore. I'll share everything I know. John felt determination swell within him, filling up the spaces where doubt had been. They had people behind them now, and they had to push through the fear. Then let us do this together, John said, the warmth of resolve spreading through the damp air. Tomorrow, we'll search for evidence, and together, we'll take this to the public. Just as they agreed, a distant siren wailed, drawing their eyes away from the dream of tomorrow back to the reality of today. What if they come for us? David shot a glance toward the street. They might try, John said, steeling himself. But we're stronger than our fears. No more hiding. Unbeknownst to them, the echoes of their conversation drifted into the night, a warning and a promise, seeding the ground for what was to come. As the rain slowed, a separate kind of storm brewed on the horizon. Would the truth pull them together, or would it only tear them apart? The next morning felt different. The air was thick with anticipation as John stood at the kitchen counter, coffee steaming in his hands. The sun filtered through the window, scattering warm light across the room, but his heart felt heavy. He glanced at Sarah, who was busy packing a small backpack with notebooks and pens, preparing for the day ahead. Her expression was focused, determination etched in her features. "Are you ready?" she asked, breaking the silence. John gulped down the last of his coffee, feeling the rush of caffeine kick in. "As ready as I can be." With a deep breath, they stepped outside. The morning sky was clear, yet gray clouds gathered in the distance, threatening another storm. It felt like an omen. After a quick stop at David's place, they piled into John's car. "So what's our plan?" David asked, his voice laced with nervous excitement. "We start at the factory," John said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "If there's evidence hidden there, it'll be our best shot." The drive was filled with a tense silence, each of them caught up in their thoughts. John could see David's fingers drumming nervously against his leg in the passenger seat. He half wished he could calm the anxiety swirling around them, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed down hard. When they arrived at the factory, it loomed before them, a grim silhouette against the morning light. Its broken windows and peeling paint told stories of neglect. The three of them stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath their shoes echoing in the stillness. "Are you sure we should be doing this?" David hesitated, casting a glance back at the street. "What if someone sees us?" John shook his head. "We have to do it. If what you say is true, people deserve to know." As they approached the entrance, John felt a shiver of unease race down his spine. The heavy wooden door creaked open in protest, revealing a dusty interior that smelled of rust and regret. Each step they took sent little puffs of dust into the sunlight. "Split up. We'll cover more ground that way," John suggested, already scanning the area for anything that stood out. "David, you check the office area. Sarah, look near the loading dock. I'll check the basement." With nods of agreement, they separated, and John's heart raced as he descended the stairs leading down into the darkness. The basement was cold and damp, the air thick with the scent of mildew. He flicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, revealing old machinery and forgotten crates. He rifled through everything, ignoring the chill creeping into his bones. Minutes morphed into what felt like hours as he searched desperately for anything that could substantiate their claims. Just as doubt began to creep in, something caught his eye, a piece of metal glinting in the darkness. Kneeling down, he pulled it free from the dust, his breath hitching. It was a nameplate, half buried under a collapsed shelf. As he brushed off the dirt, his heart sank. The name on the plate. It belonged to someone he recognized. Someone whose story was part of the community's hidden past. And in that moment, John realized the truth was far darker than he anticipated. Just as he was absorbing the weight of this revelation, a loud crash echoed above him, sending shockwaves of panic through his chest. "John," he heard Sarah's voice, tinged with fear. "Get up here." The urgency in her tone sent him scrambling up the stairs. What was happening? As he reached the top, he was met with a sight that made his blood run cold. David was backed against the wall, his eyes wide with terror, as a figure loomed over him, shadowy and threatening. "Stay away from him," John shouted, his voice cracking. But before the words could settle in the air, he knew they were crossing a line. The storm above them had finally broken loose, but it was nothing compared to the storm brewing right in front of them. What were they about to unleash? John's heart pounded in his chest as he surveyed the scene. The figure standing over David was tall, clad in dark clothing that seemed to absorb the light around him, casting an even darker shadow over the confrontation. John's thoughts raced. Who was this person, and what did they want? "Let him go," John shouted again, his voice louder this time, infused with desperation. The figure shifted slightly, allowing John a clearer view of David's panic-stricken face. David looked small and vulnerable against the wall, a stark contrast to the threatened energy in the room. "John, I didn't mean to," David stammered, his voice barely reaching above a whisper. "Shut up," the shadowed figure barked, his voice rough and authoritative. He took a step forward, and David flinched, pressing himself further into the wall as if to disappear altogether. John took a deep breath, trying to will himself to move. He could feel Sarah's presence behind him, but he didn't dare turn to see what she was doing. He was acutely aware that whatever happened next would define their courage, and their bodies wouldn't just be spectators in this game of fear. "Listen, we're not here to hurt anyone," John said, his voice steadying as he internally wrestled with the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We just want to get to the bottom of things. All of this," he gestured broadly to the factory, "it needs to be exposed. Whatever secret you're protecting, it's time to let it go." For a moment, silence filled the air, thick and suffocating. The figure laughed, a cold, mirthless sound that sent a shiver down John's spine. "You think you know what's at stake here, don't you? You really believe you can just burst into my domain and take what you want?" "I don't know what's at stake, but I know it's wrong," John countered, stepping forward deliberately. "We're just trying to help people. Whatever you think you're doing, it's not worth it." The shadow paused, and John could see the tension in his body. It was an opening. Maybe he could find a way to defuse the situation before it escalated any further. "Just let David go," Sarah's voice broke through, practically trembling with fear. It rose above the uncertainty surrounding them, raw and pleading. "He didn't mean any harm. He enough?" The figure snapped, turning toward her with a fury that made John step between them instinctively. "You don't know anything. What I know is that you're scared." "We're all scared," John said, locking eyes with the figure. "This can end without anyone getting hurt. Please." Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a flicker of movement next to the long-forgotten assembly line. A flash of light caught his attention, and his heart sank as he realized what it was: a security camera, blinking red. They'd been watched this entire time. "Why have you come here?" the figure asked slowly, his voice suddenly calmer, almost contemplative. "We came to find the truth," John replied carefully, his heart racing with the tension of the moment. "Whatever secrets this place holds, are you prepared for the truth?" The figure interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. "Because once you know, there's no turning back." Before John could respond, a loud crash echoed from the loading dock, pulling all their attention. In that instant, the atmosphere shifted from confrontational to chaotic. "What was that?" David squeaked, now looking completely bewildered. As the figure released David and turned to investigate, John saw his chance. He grabbed David's arm tightly, tugging him away from danger. "We need to get out of here." But just as they made a move towards the exit, the figure turned with a steely resolve. "You think you can run from the consequences of your actions? You have no idea what you're getting into." And with that, the storm that had been brewing outside began rattling the old factory windows, matching the tempest of emotions surging within John. The storm was merely a reflection of the chaos that had just begun. "Now what?" Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "We confront the truth together," John said, determination flooding his mind. "And we're not backing down." Just as they stepped forward to face whatever was next, the ground beneath them trembled, and they braced for what was to come. Would they uncover secrets meant to stay buried, or was danger lurking just around the corner? The rumble of the storm intensified, drowned out only by their own racing hearts. John could feel the weight of Sarah's hand gripping his arm, a tether in the chaos. David, still visibly shaken, stood close, his eyes wide with fear as the figure glared at them. "You can't just leave," the figure growled, his voice a mix of authority and desperation. "You have no idea what will happen if you do." "What is going to happen?" John challenged, taking an involuntary step forward. The fear was still there, but alongside it was a flicker of anger, a determination that had been kindling since they first entered the factory. "We came here for answers. You can't act like some kind of god over us." The figure hesitated, his shoulders tense. It was the break John had been hoping for, a chance to draw out the truth that lurked beneath the surface. "What are you protecting?" John pressed. "Is it worth all this? Holding David hostage, hiding whatever this place represents?" A storm of emotions played across the figure's face: fear, regret, anger. "You don't even know what you're asking, do you?" "I know enough," John replied, his voice stronger now, forging a connection despite the peril. "I know that keeping people in the dark is the worst thing you can do. Whatever's at stake, you can't hide behind intimidation. Let us talk about it." For a heartbeat, time stood still. Tension crackled in the air like electricity. Then, the figure turned away, allowing silence to settle. John held his breath, waiting for any sign that the confrontation wouldn't spiral completely out of control. The figure began, then swallowed hard. You can't just walk away from this. You two, he gestured toward John and Sarah, you'll want in, but you need to understand the cost. Whatever it is, we can handle it, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking the suffocating quiet. The conviction in her tone ignited a glimmer of hope deep within John. Are you sure? The figure's eyes darted between them, seeming to gauge their resolve. Truth comes with a price. What you uncover could change everything. Are you really ready for that? John barely hesitated. We've faced fear already. Why stop now? The figure nodded slowly, almost reluctantly. Fine, but you're not ready for what lies ahead. With that, he turned towards the factory doors, and John exchanged a quick glance with Sarah and David. They had to move now, but questions lurked like shadows in the corners of his mind. What truth was he about to confront? As the figure led them past the rusted machinery, John couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was a crossroads. Outside, the storm raged on, but here, whispers of the past seemed to echo louder. The factory felt like a living entity, pulsating with memories and secrets long buried. Just stay close, the figure warned, casting a glance behind him as if expecting shadows to rise at any moment. And whatever you do, keep your wits about you. They crept deeper into the factory, the air thick with suspense and the scent of rust. John felt a knot of fear forming in his stomach, but he pushed it down. This was their chance to uncover the truth and perhaps, just maybe, help David find redemption. The figure paused, glancing back at them. What you'll see, it will test you. Bring it on, John replied, voicing a strength he didn't fully feel. But as they moved further into the unknown darkness, the echo of his own words hung in the air uncertainly. Would they find what they were looking for, or would the truth shatter everything they believed in? With every creak of machinery and flash of lightning, John's heart raced with both anticipation and dread, not knowing what awaited them in the shadows of the factory. A single question lingered in his mind. Was uncovering the truth worth the risk, or were they bargaining with forces far beyond their control? Suddenly, another crash echoed from within, and the air shifted ominously. John turned to face whatever was coming, adrenaline coursing through him. The unseen depths of the factory stirred, and the real test was about to begin. A sharp clang reverberated through the factory, the metallic sound slicing through the heavy silence. John instinctively raised his hands, ready to shield himself from whatever threat lurked in the shadows. Sarah squeezed his arm tighter, her grip like a lifeline. David stood frozen, eyes darting nervously, the memory of the figure's tense aura still etched in his mind. Stay behind me, the figure barked, striking a commanding presence as he moved ahead, leading them deeper into the dimly lit corridor. Each step felt monumental, charged with a sense of impending revelation. John couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, but the need for answers pushed him onward. As they moved forward, the air felt heavier, thick with dust and the scent of forgotten machinery. Flashes of lightning illuminated the long-abandoned space, revealing scattered remnants of a past that hinted at something sinister. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, each crack a testament to the years of neglect that painted a picture of desolation. Do you really think we're ready? Sarah asked, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. John fought to find the right words, searching for reassurance not just for her, but for himself. We have to be. We owe it to David. He deserves to know. A nod from Sarah and a slight exhale from David reinforced their commitment, even if the weight of their mutual fears hung heavy around them. Suddenly, the figure stopped abruptly, raising a hand to signal them to halt as they entered a cavernous room. Old machines lined the walls, their rusted frames looming like ancient sentinels. In the center stood an enormous container, covered by a faded tarp, its shape suggesting an object of great importance. What is that? John asked, his curiosity piqued. The figure hesitated, hesitant to reveal his hand. What lies beneath this cloth is the truth you seek, but be warned, it's not what you expect. It could bring you closer together or tear you apart. John's heart raced. Let us decide that for ourselves. We're not afraid. Show us. With a heavy sigh of resignation, the figure stepped forward, grasping the edge of the tarp. Very well. But remember, once you see what's underneath, there's no going back. He pulled the tarp away, revealing a series of old photos, documents, and a small metal box with intricate designs. The sight sent a shiver down John's spine. Each photograph depicted faces from years gone by, smiles hiding untold stories of joy, pain, and betrayal. The documents, yellowed with age, looked like they held records that had long been buried. What is all this? David's voice trembled, his earlier fear morphing into a potent cocktail of anticipation and dread. This is where it all began, the figure replied, his tone solemn. This factory was once a place of innovation, but it fell to darkness. That darkness is not just in the walls, but in the hearts of those connected to it. John stepped closer, drawn to the secrets laid bare before him. The photographs showed families, workers, and dreamers, their lives intertwined in ways he couldn't yet fathom. Who were these people, and what had they endured? With a breath that felt like it could split the silence, he leaned closer to one of the photos, tracing the outline of a man who resembled David. This can't be, he whispered, the connection sparking a realization deep within him. The figure watched intently as the pieces began to shift in John's mind. Each of you has a role in this story. The past and the present are intertwined in ways you cannot yet see. Realization washed over John like cold water. But if we're part of this story, then what does it mean for us? The figure's gaze darkened. That, my friend, is the question that will define your future. Are you prepared to face the truth of your own past? A rush of emotions surged through John. Fear, anger, but most of all, a burning desire to understand. As thunder rumbled again, he knew that the storm outside was nothing compared to what was brewing within him. And just as he was about to delve deeper, the ground beneath them trembled, as if the very foundation of the factory was quaking in response to their inquiries. "Stay back," he shouted, instinctively shoving Sarah and David away from the container, bracing for the unknown. What else could this factory possibly have hidden? The room shook violently, and something else emerged from the depths of darkness, a figure on the brink of becoming far more than a shadow in their story. In that moment, they stood at the edge of understanding. But would this truth bind them together or tear their lives apart forever? The ground shook violently, walls trembled, and dust rained down like an ominous warning. John held Sarah and David close, his heart pounding furiously. The factory was alive, awakening to their intrusion. "What is happening?" David cried out, his voice nearly swallowed by the thrumming sound of creaking metal. "Stay calm," John shouted, trying to keep his voice steady. He locked eyes with the figure, who appeared unfazed by the chaos around them, firmly standing guard over the box that seemed to pulsate with energy. "You need to understand," the figure said, unfazed, his voice nearly drowned out by the noise. "The truth can reshape destinies. You're asking for answers that carry consequences. Are you willing to bear the weight?" "I don't care about the weight," John shouted back, desperation seeping through. "We need to know what happened here. People deserve to feel safe." Just as he said it, a loud crash echoed through the room as a heavy metal beam above them lurched and fell. John instinctively pushed Sarah to the side, bracing for impact as debris fell around them. A cloud of dust enveloped them, and for a moment, vision blurred and ears rang. When the dust settled, they emerged, coughing, to realize the figure had moved closer to the container, his eyes piercing with intensity. "Every secret has its price," he warned. "The past one remained buried without a fight." "Then let it fight," John challenged, breathless but fueled by determination. "We'll face whatever comes." With a quick motion, the figure stepped aside, revealing the contents of the small metal box within the scattered photographs and documents. Inside were old tapes, literal recordings of conversations, hidden truths from the factory's unfortunate past. John's eyes widened. Those recordings could hold everything, the stories, the proof. Yes, but they also contain pain, loss, and decisions made in the dark, the figure cautioned. His face transformed, a mask of vulnerability cresting over authority. What's recorded holds humanity's darkest secrets, including the very thing that haunts you, David. David blanched. The validation of his hidden fears had come to meet him, ready to expose his past when he was least prepared. "Take it," John urged, heart racing. "We can't run from what's been hidden. We need to hear it. We owe it to those who suffered before us." The figure held out the tapes, trembling slightly. One moment of clarity could lead to clarity for a community. But also, one moment could tear your lives apart. John stepped forward, eyes fixed on the tapes. Whatever it is, we will face it together. Sarah nodded, her grip steady on John. We're a team. Whatever this means, we'll handle it. David, caught in the storm of emotions, finally stepped closer. I must confront it. I can't let this shadow follow me forever. He took the tapes from the figure, and John felt a thrill of hope surge through him. As they began to examine the tapes, the past rushed forward like floodwaters. Each recording spoke of decisions made with heart and decisions made with greed, the cost for profit, and the devastating fallout that followed. Voices echoed, distress calls, cries for help, file archives of negligence. The burden each of them bore was painted in 10 shades of grief. What is this? David's voice broke, each line revealing another layer of pain intertwined with his own history. I didn't know, I couldn't remember. I tried to forget. There was shock, sorrow, determination in his eyes, a combination that seemed to fortify his fragile spirit. But the room's vibrations surged, walls protesting as if they too wanted the truth set free. John held his breath as the weight of their connection to this hidden past pressed down heavily upon them. We can't turn back now, he said. We have to finish this. Suddenly, the power flickered, the lights dimming under the pressure unleashed. The figure turned, urgency in his actions. We must go now, or your quest may lead to catastrophic repercussions. I want to abandon this. John protested, ready to face down the inevitable. These lives matter. But it was already too late. With another violent shudder, a piece of ceiling caved in, and debris fell near them. In that moment, John grabbed Sarah and David, ready to sprint. Stick together, he cried, adrenaline coursing through him as they moved through the rubble with urgency. We have to expose the truth, and we can't let this place bury us. Just as they reached the exit, they turned back one last time, the figure now standing as a guardian, determined yet fading into the chaos. Remember, he called out, truth holds power. Use it wisely. Bursting outside into the rain-soaked air, John, Sarah, and David found themselves alive, yet fervently aware of the adversity ahead. What just happened? Sarah gasped for breath, looking back toward the factory which had begun to tremble under their revelations. We found something, John said, voice steady but filled with emotion. We found truth. As they stood united, the storm felt less about fear and more about cleansing, and with resolve in their hearts, they faced what lay ahead. Palms sweating, John pulled out his phone, glancing at the latest messages about the local press reaching out to them. We have our chance, he declared, gathering their full confidence. It's time to share our story, the truth. A smile broke through the tension on Sarah's face. We're doing this together, as a family. Together, David echoed, determination shining through the haze of past struggles. In that moment, under the rain-soaked clouds, they stood as a testament to resilience. They were more than survivors. They were change-makers ready to rise against the tide, ready to confront the shadows lurking in Maplewood. With hope wrapped around them, John knew they were set on a path that would ripple outwards, one brave act at a time. This wasn't just about a car, or the struggles they had faced together. It was about a united community ready to reclaim their story. The light within John sparkled with a brightness they would carry into the future, knowing that together, they could face anything. Together, they would fight for justice, not just for themselves, but for those who had suffered quietly in the shadows. There was power in truth, and their journey had just begun. And now, dear friends, if you felt the intensity of resilience and unity in this story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your unwavering support for the channel. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and ensure future stories like this continue to soar. Comment below and share your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. We want to hear you. And don't you dare wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel inspired by the triumph of truth. Let us spread the word and ignite change together.